Hey everyone, Cody Bjugan here from Vestright. I'm here with Blake. Can you say hi, Blake?
Hey, Cody.
Blake recently went through one of our courses here at Vestright, and I am beyond thankful that he is willing to share openly. Obviously, there is some confidential elements to what we're about to get into, and so because we will get into his projected paydays, we're not going to get absolutely specific on the exact dollar amount, but we're going to share ranges with you. But the main goal of this interview is I'm out there talking to y'all all the time, trying to inspire you, trying to encourage you, motivate you. But there's nothing like hearing the story from someone that made that leap of faith and trusted in us enough to allow us to be a part of their journey by signing up for one of our courses. And so I believe what Blake will have to share today is going to have not much more of an impact, but it's another angle of impact that I think hopefully will bring inspiration to each of you. So with that, Blake, I want to thank you for doing this and be as open as you can, but at the same time, it's very important to us that you're comfortable, right? So with that said, by the way, I have a list of questions my team has me ask. So if you see me fumbling around with papers, it's because I have specific questions. I'm not a marketer, right? I'm just a dirt guy with a vision. So I have those that specialize in this that help me with the questions. So let's start off with how long ago. Let's start off with so what's your day job? What do you do for a day job?
Yeah, so I'm a senior architect in information technology. I design data centers and networking server storage systems for Fortune 500 companies around the world.
Okay. And so related to Vestright, tell me how Vestright became a part of your life. So how did you find Vestright, and then tell me what made you pull the trigger?
Yeah, so I've always had an interest in real estate. You know, the IT career has been wonderful to me, but it's always been something that I've looked for an exit strategy for. And real estate has been something that I've really focused on. And I know many people have said that there's been more self-made millionaires out of real estate than any other profession in the world. And so I kind of looked to real estate for that, but I could never find that sweet spot, right? The thing that was really interesting to me. And I was up late one night, kind of just perusing the internet, and I stumbled upon an ad for land development, and I was in the middle of getting ready to try and sell my property for a like a subdivision, right? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I clicked on some of your free courses. I looked at the magic math and how all that stuff works, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. I want to call these guys and talk to them. So I sent an email. The next day I'm on a call with y'all, right? About, hey, what are you doing? How does this work? So on and so forth. Afterwards, got off the call, had a conversation with my wife, and we're like, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. And so, yeah, that's what I did. And I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome, man. And how long ago was that you joined?
I think that was back in July that I joined.
Okay. And so you shared with me prior to, so just July. So that was what, 5 months ago? 4 months ago. 4 months ago. Is that right?
Yeah, it could have been a little bit earlier than that, but it was around that time frame.
Okay,
yep.
Awesome. And so you shared with me offline. So you have 3 deals you're currently have under contract. 2 of them you have, not only do you have the property under contract, and one of them you own, as you just mentioned a moment ago. So 2 under contract plus the one you own. And then 2 of those 3 you have a PSA inked with your buyer, who so you have the deal put together on both sides with the seller and with the buyer. And the third one, it sounds like you're going back and forth right now with who your buyer is, to where then you'll have a PSA, an ink deal on the buy side of that third deal as well here very soon. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yep.
Cool. And so, I want to be careful. This is where we can get into detail about the specifics of those deals. But actually, before I go into the detail, yes, what you're doing on those 3 deals are very inspiring, and the numbers you shared with me is just so phenomenal, and it tingles me inside to know that I'm a part of that with you as far as our course and what we've taught. But the main goal of this interview is those that are struggling to make that leap of faith and either join the course, or those that maybe have joined the course and they're current students, but they're struggling like following the steps. The main goal is to share more about the main goal of the interview is to hear more about your journey, because there might be something you say that is what they needed to hear. So, what made you, because there's all kinds of courses online. There's all kinds of ads, right? I mean, Facebook's full of them. But what specifically, and after you did the call with us, what was it that made this one different for you to make that leap of faith?
Yeah. So, I mean, the concept of working on complex deals, right? Like I told you, I'm in IT. That means I enjoy complexity. You can't do IT without liking complexity. So, working on these deals that are multifaceted, that you've got to be creative with. Like you can't just go in and say, I got a stamp for every single thing that I'm going to do. That was really, really fascinating to me. The fact that you guys really broke things down succinctly was really important for me also, right? That I could kind of consume it in the way that I needed it, but then you also provided all of the resources, material, training, and Q&As to be able for me to digest some of this stuff in the way that I needed to. I think the other really big thing for me, and I didn't realize it as much at the time, but now I do realize the value of it, was the collateral that you provide, right? The things around contracts and advertising and so on. That is, in my opinion, that is worth the cost of the course. No questions asked.
Yeah, that's very cool. What are maybe some of the obstacles or challenges or thoughts mentally, emotionally, that maybe you've dealt with, or that has maybe stopped you from doing things in the past, right? That you were able to overcome those emotions, or or mental or emotional, you were able to overcome those when you made that leap of faith with Vestright. Like, can we get to know you a little better personally, and some of those emotions or thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's this thing called imposter syndrome that a lot of people kind of struggle with, and I have also. I have done, although I know that I'm good in my career and in my profession, anytime I start something new, I'm always kind of like, are they going to figure out that I'm just like I'm making it up as I go here, right? And that's a big thing that's kind of kept me back in a lot of areas of jumping out and saying, yeah, I can do this. I've always heard that, expression, fake it till you make it, sort of a thing. And that is, at the end of the day, plays into this imposter syndrome thing that I'm referring to, which is a real challenge that I have seen even getting into this course. I call up a jurisdiction or a builder or whoever, and it's like, who am I? Like, I'm just this dude that doesn't know anything about anything, and I'm calling them and acting like I can help them in some way, right? And it's very daunting to begin with, but the more I've done anything that I've done in my career, the lesser that feeling is, right? Eventually you feel like, hey, maybe I'm not the best. There's always people better than me. I've realized that, but maybe I'm not the best, but I can tell you that I will try as hard as anybody out there, and I won't give up. And that's, for me, that stick to itiveness is really what has helped me in my profession and in the land deal stuff that I've been working on.
Yeah. Well, I just gotta thank you for being transparent with that. And you're right. There's many people that struggle with that same thing. And I'll tell you right now, I sometimes struggle with it, right? As I'm scaling my business right now across the country, right? It's like, who am I to, I had this goal to build the largest off-market land acquisition company in the country, right? Like, who am I to have that, but the reality is once you dive into this stuff, and I have a feeling this is what you're experiencing, is you start to get to the other side and you're like, man, why did that fear was unneeded, right? Like, but you mentioned something like, who am I, doing this? And I almost caught the hint of like, what value do I bring, right? Now that you have 3 deals and they're decent sized deals and they have great paydays and you have numerous interested buyers, are you starting to see the value you bring as a land acquisition specialist?
Yeah, for sure. I actually had a call. I made a post on Facebook thanking you all for everything that you've done. And I had a gentleman that called me and, wanted to talk to me about my experience. And one of the things that in the end I did is I challenged his perception of his value. And I
Yeah.
said, listen, although you've worked in land deals for a long time, you don't believe that you bring the value to the table that you can bring to the table. And that's what I've learned through these land deals is like, there are so many people and we're all just people at the end of the day, right? Like, it feels like there's these big companies and these behemoths that you're working with, but they're just people that we're interacting with, and they've got their own needs and wants. And you're there, at least I'm there, trying to make their lives a little better today
Yes.
while I'm sitting in front of them. And
Yeah.
and I can bring real knowledge and ideas to the table that maybe they haven't even thought of. And I've only been doing this for a little while. Some of these people have been doing it for a long time. I'll give you a great example. Jurisdiction. So that was one of the scariest people for me to start reaching out to, was the government, right? To start
Yeah.
talking to them about things and what we're going to do and everything like that. And man, I have learned that building relationships with jurisdictions is so important. If there was one thing that I would say is of primary importance, I would say building relationships with your jurisdictions is of primary importance. That in the end, I was scared, right? Like I'd call these people, I'd be fumbling over my words and trying to just, how do I even ask this question? And terminologies were different and all this stuff. And now I pick up the phone. I just did this actually last week. Picked up the phone, called a new jurisdiction, and within probably about 15 minutes, I had developed a rapport with them. And the questions that I was asking, it was easy. It wasn't like pulling teeth. And they realized that I wanted to make their lives easier. It wasn't, I want to try and figure out what I could get past you or get by with. It was, I want to understand how you operate, how I can make things simple. So when I bring it to your table, it's a breath of fresh air for you instead of what a lot of the other
Wow.
developers do, frankly.
Wow. That's a really good word there. Man, I hope everybody goes and rewinds and listens to that again. Something has popped in my head that I've never had pop into my head before, but I believe it. I've just never thought about it. I talk all the time about win-wins with your sellers, right? And with your buyers, and win-wins possible. It's just figuring out what the motivating points are and the hot buttons and how to make the deal work for everybody. But I've never thought about win-win with the jurisdiction. I mean, I guess I have in some ways, trying to get deals across the finish line, but I mean, you are so right. Like, we should be interviewing these jurisdictions the same way we interview sellers or buyers, to figure out what their hot buttons are and to make their lives easier. That's a great word, man. Thanks for that. That's really good. That's really good. That's good stuff. And I think too, these jurisdictions, and you shared a little bit offline, and I talk about it all the time online, is how few people, even professionals, real estate agents, have any knowledge related to this industry, this space, as far as raw land that has development potential and what the development process looks like and what the approval process like. It's just very few people have this knowledge, which was part of the motivator in me, starting Vestright 2 years ago, part of my purpose. And I can only imagine these jurisdictions, these planners, these educated individuals in exactly this space, the questions people call and ask them, they're probably like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Like, this person has no clue what they're talking about. I'm not trying to offend anybody. It's just the reality. And someone like yourself, even though you're still learning and growing, you now have this base foundation of understanding how the space works, where even if you might feel uneducated, here's the reality. You are more educated than the majority of the people out there in this space, in this world, even real estate investors. I mean, I got tons of buddies that are real estate investors and none of them understand this space. So it might be refreshing for the jurisdictions to be asked the questions you're asking them.
Yeah, I've absolutely seen that. I mean, they the very first jurisdiction that I work with, I positioned myself in this way, called them and said, hey, listen, brand new to land development. I don't know anything about it. I'm taking these courses. I'm learning everything I can about it. And I have like all these questions and I wanted to talk to somebody that's doing it day in and day out. Would you be willing to help me? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I've got 10 minutes. Go ahead and, fire away. And so I asked them a couple questions, very respectful of their time, right? They said they had 10 minutes. At the end of 10 minutes, I'm like, hey, listen, I appreciate all your help. And I hope to be able to work with you in the future. Would you mind, if I have more questions, if I called you in the future? Yeah, sure. No problem. Fast forward months now. And I call that person up and I get them on the phone. I'm like, hey, this is Blake. And they're like, oh, hey, Blake, how's it going? Right. Like that is not a relationship that I didn't invest in. Right. That is not something that will just collapse as a result of nothing. Like I have worked hard to build that and to establish those rapports. I've stopped by their office and brought them donuts in the morning and said, here you guys go. Thanks for everything. Right. Just really trying to build up those relationships. So yeah, I mean, I've absolutely seen it where they're like, I just had some, like, I went into a planner's office the other day and we were talking about a little bit about kind of the process of getting through approvals. And he ended up clearing off his table and showing me something that he was getting ready to take before the planning committee and or the planning commission. And we're looking at it together. And I mean, he's just opening up, telling me about all these things. This isn't even my project. He's like, you need to think about this. And like this thing ended up, causing a problem and yada, yada. And it was all because I've developed that relationship with him and I spent the time invested with him to say, hey man, like what's interesting to you, right? What do you want to tell me about? Like, this is what I have. What can you share with me? And a lot of times people will just open up because like you mentioned, they want to see things go through, but they want to see them go through smoothly too. And that makes their life a lot easier.
You know what, Blake, I'm smiling about right now is as you start talking about that relationship, I can see the passion, right? You start glowing and I can feel your energy. And that's very refreshing. But, one of the first things you said when you just started talking about that relationship is you started that relationship off with being vulnerable, with being transparent, right? Authentic. Like I love those three words, right? Authenticity, transparency, vulnerability. Like that's what you did. You didn't go in there trying to be something you're not. And I am convinced the best way to build trust, and quite frankly, the best way to even sell, is through just not pretending. Just be vulnerable, be transparent, be authentic. And that those people, I mean, I would almost guarantee they respect how you approach them.
Yeah, I think so. I've found that approaching people humbly is
Mm,
10 times better than acting like you know it all. I'll tell you,
yeah.
I've had buyers. I had a family trust that I worked with on a deal that never came to fruition, but they've sold number of plots of land for development to Walmart, to Home Depots, to to Lennars and so on. And I'm like, hey, listen, I want to make sure you understand this process. And they were like, oh no, we got it. Like this is no issue. We've done it, over and over again. Like just send your LOI over and we'll go from there. And so I was like, okay, I sent it over to them, and the response back to me from the LOI made it very clear that they did not understand the process at all. At
Right.
all. And
Yeah.
so I had to spend time trying to educate that owner, right? And I did, and I don't mind. I want to do that. And they gave me the opportunity afterwards, when they had all these questions, to actually spend some time educating them. It didn't end up working out at this point. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to do something else with them, but you know acting like you know it all never helps. Like, it just
Yeah.
never helps. I had as another example, I had of authenticity. I
Yeah.
had um a landowner that was asking me questions about, what other deals have you done in this area?
Yeah.
Well, that's a scary question for somebody that is brand new, right?
Yep.
Because you're trying to woo this landowner, and now they're asking you, like, this is where the rubber meets the road. What have you done?
Yep.
And so I was like, listen, I'm new to this space. I've learned a ton about it, and I'll tell you that I will go down fighting if I ever go down. But when everything's said and done, uh, I only have one other project that I'm currently working on in this area. And I said, I'm working with, they were specifically asking about it as it related to the PSA. And so I said, hey, listen, I worked with this attorney locally that reviewed my PSA for this other client. Can't give
Yeah.
you, the client's names or anything like that to this other landowner. But I was like, you can talk to this attorney. They reviewed my PSA. They got a comfort level with it. Why don't you do that? Because their attorney was a family attorney, and they were just
Yeah.
like, I don't understand any of this. And they went back and came back, and they said, hey, let's try and make this work. Which was great, right? I was worried that they'd be like, we need somebody that's a little bit more experienced.
That's cool. A minute ago, we call that selling through education, where you took the time to educate that seller. Selling through education is can work out very well at times. Okay, so let me see what other questions my team has here for me. Okay, a few more questions related to the course, and then we'll dive into your deals and just spend a little bit of time on your deals. What are the biggest results you found of where you were at before you went through the course to where you're at now after going through the course? Like, what are the biggest nuggets or takeaways, or what are the results that came from you going through the course, either how you feel or your knowledge, or tell me about before and after.
I started off knowing nothing about land, about development, about jurisdictions and entitlements and so on. I didn't know any of this. Like, if you would have said to me, even mention the word preliminary plat, I would have been like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I went through this course, and I developed not only the vocabulary, because that's super important as you're dealing with people in this space, but I also developed an understanding around how the development process works, which is so important also. Um, because, you know, every potential buyer that you approach or that approaches you, they have their own outcome that they're looking for as well. And if you don't understand what matters to them, then you're not going to be valuable to them, right?
Yeah.
And so this course helped me excuse me, to really build that value, so that
Yeah.
when I walked in and talked to these landowners and the developers and the builders, I could talk to them in their language. I could show
Yeah.
them how I can add value, and
Yeah.
I could bring things to the table that really made a difference. I'll give you a great example. This isn't necessarily something that you teach in the course, but all the components are there. And that is, whenever I put a deal together, which I'm working on one right now, I put together a promotional flyer for that deal. I don't
Yeah.
advertise that to the world, but immediately when I got a deal ready, I put that flyer together, and it's ready. As soon as I have a buyer lined up, I share that flyer with them, so that, because they're going to have tons of questions about land, right? Your deal.
Mm-hmm.
That flyer answers 98% of the questions that they're going to have, so that we don't have to spend time going back and forth about things that are just details that they can get very quickly. And so they get that flyer, and then they come back. So far, I've done that 2 times, and I'm on my 3rd one now. So far, you know, they come back with, okay, got everything that I need. What do you want for this deal? Right. And it makes things a lot easier. And I couldn't have done that without going through this course and knowing what all was important to a buyer, right? A potential buyer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a shortcut. I mean, imagine, well, I had to kind of in the beginning. I had a partner in 2002 that helped me understand some of the basics, right? But the majority of what I learned, I had to learn the hard way through trial and error and asking anybody and everybody a gazillion questions. But you just made me realize it's almost like I had someone mentioned the other day, cheat code, right? It's almost like a cheat code, right? It's a shortcut. I mean, it just cuts so much time off the learning process. I mean, not to say that, dude, I've been doing it 20 years and I'm still learning every day, but my point, but yeah, that's really good. What do you wish we did more of?
I wish that there were some end-to-end examples given, of hey, this is like, we want to take you through a deal from inception to finalization, or to, you know, exit. I think that, and I know that, you know, you're limited by the things that you can share, so on, but even if it's a mocked deal or a pretend deal that you take all the way from the beginning to end, I think that would be super helpful. That being said, there's so many nuances around every single deal.
Yeah.
Like, how could you do that and make it completely, you know, solve every single problem? I don't think you could, but if you took 1 or 2 deals, I think that you would answer a lot of the questions that keep coming up in like Q&A and so on, right? That
Yeah.
it would just be like, oh, okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that, because, I did a little beta mastermind group. It was like 6 months it lasted, where it was me, with, I think it was 10 people was our beta, or 11. And so we have 4 or 5 of those, where it's beginning to end. And so I'll have to talk with the marketing team and about what you just shared. But you are right. Like, man, if you're not creative, you're not resourceful, you're not going to be successful at this. You're just not, because I can show you all the case studies in the world, but here's the reality. No 2 deals are the same. And that's where you got to be resourceful. You got to be creative. And again, you shared that with me on offline, like that, that creativity is a space you're comfortable in. And it's absolutely necessary, because none of these deals are the same. What do you wish we did better?
I don't know that I have a great answer for that.
That's okay. You won't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I think everything was done really well professionally. I mean, it was easy to learn. I could stop a video and pick up later if if something distracted me, what have you. Um, I don't know that I can give you something to do better. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now let's get back to your 3 deals. And what I want to do for the sake of time is I'm going to try to summarize it. Okay. Is you have 3 deals you're working on. And let me pull up my notes. And I'm not going to get into the specifics, but you have 3 deals you're working on. They're all, over 100 lots. Couple are, 200 lots or more. All 3 of these deals, dude, I love it, Blake, by the way. You're exercising one of the most phenomenal ninja strategies we share in our course. And that is, with the little bit of capital you need to do what we do, because I think you would understand and agree by now, the model we teach, it makes the barrier of entry much more achievable for most than what you would think, right? Most people see our space as out of reach, and it's just not if you understand our model. But there is so we cut out most of the risk and most of the capital. We really do, because most of the risk and capital starts when you actually start moving the dirt, developing, right? And
Yeah.
closing on the land. So we cut out majority of the risk, majority of the capital, but there still is capital needed to get these deals approved. And the ninja strategy you're using, and on all 3 of your deals, you're using this strategy. And I want everybody to make a note of this. The strategy you are using is you're going and putting together off-market deals. And then you're bringing in your buyer, and your buyer is capitalizing all the approval costs. So the capital needed for approvals. What you are capitalizing is the little bit of earnest money that's needed with the seller, right? But your buyer's capitalizing all the approvals, and then they're closing at preliminary plat. So at government approvals, land use approval, there's lots of different terminologies. And you're doing basically simultaneous closes where you're closing with the seller, the buyer's closing with you. You make your scrape out of the middle. There's the one deal that it's your own personal, property. So you already own it. So it's irrelevant, but you're using the ninja strategy of them capitalizing the improvements. So you're not using your own capital or friends and family capital or bringing an investor for capital. And so it takes a hand out of the cookie jar, because now you're not having to share profits with an investor or friends and family or whoever. Your buyer is capitalizing. Okay. And which is just, it's the most beautiful strategy out of any of the strategies we share, and we share numerous. Is that correct? Is that the strategy you're using? Is there anything I'm missing there? Or I've misspoke?
No, that's right. One tweak that I will give to that is this deal. One of the deals that I'm working on right now, I'm actually trying to do something that's even more ninja or whatever, right? And that is where I'm taking the escrow that the buyer puts down and applying it towards the escrow that's due to the seller. And I'm working with my escrow agent to do that. We'll see if that actually happens or not. If it doesn't happen, it's okay. I can fund it also. But if I can do that, that's great. Like, that gives me the ability to move even on even more deals.
Yeah. Yeah, we've poked around with that, so you'll have to make sure to share that once you get it all figured out. Because I should be transparent. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to resolve that or figure that out for people, but just because we always just capitalize the earnest money. But you would think there's got to be a way with the title company where you use your buyer's earnest money to capitalize your seller earnest money. And so keep us in the loop on that. But okay. So in your average deal, and you're working in jurisdictions, and we don't need to get into the specific jurisdictions you're working in, but your deals are taking a range from the time you ink them to the time you'll get paid. What would you say that average timeline is?
The average, I'm going to put the average probably somewhere around 7 months, maybe.
Okay. Yep.
That might come in a little bit, but I'm going to be conservative and we'll say 7 months as an average.
Okay. Which is awesome, right? Because most of the time, because I have a tendency to work in challenging jurisdictions, so my timeline's longer. But as we're scaling across the country right now, we're finding jurisdictions that move much quicker than what we're used to, and obviously you're working in some of those jurisdictions as well. So 7 months, and this is where I want to be careful, but your average earnest money on a deal. Give me what your average earnest money is on a deal. You can share exact if you want, or you can say low 5 figures, mid 5 figures, low 6 figures, mid. I mean, what's your earnest money ranging usually?
Well, let me give you the percentage first, because each deal is a different dollar amount at the end of the deal,
Yep.
at the end of the day, right? My percentage generally is around 2 to 3% of whatever the deal is on, to the seller. So, some of these earnest monies they end up being tens of thousands of dollars, right? Some
Right.
of them are in the thousands of dollars range. So it really depends on the deal at the end of the day, but it is almost always a percentage of whatever that amount is, right? Like, let's say that you're working on a deal that's it's $900,000. Well, 3% of that would be about what I'd expect in earnest money. That being said, the earnest money happens in phases, and I generally will exit from my PSA before I get to the final phase. So all my earnest money will never usually be due.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, it would be
Okay.
in that percentage range.
So let's just use a round figure. Let's just say your average earnest money is, because you said thousands to tens of thousands. Let's just say it's 15 grand, 20 grand. Okay. Just so people can start running numbers in their head, right? So
Yeah.
it's 15 to 20 grand. Okay. And then what is based upon the deals you have inked with a buyer, and then you got another deal you're getting ready to ink with a buyer, what do you expect your average profit to be on these 3 deals? And here again, you don't have to give exact numbers, but low 6 figures, mid 6 figures, low 7 figures. I mean, tell us a story.
So one of the deals I was expecting to be mid 6 figures. Okay. And that deal I got creative with. And so that one is going to be now mid 7 figures. The other 2 deals are going to be in the well, I say mid 7 figures. I guess that's really
Let's just say low
sorry.
7 figures,
Yeah.
but over $1 million, but not
Yeah.
but not 2 million, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and the other deals have been, they all look like they're going to be 7-figure deals also. Not 2 million,
Yep.
but in those million range, in that million
Yeah.
range. That's right.
So, I mean, I would assume that's life-changing for you.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. So I'm sitting here kind of pinching myself, right? Like, is this really happening? And my wife is like, Blake, what's the problem here? Like, why do you keep saying, well, if this happens, what, you've got everything in place for this to happen. I was like, well, I'm just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. This is that imposter syndrome that I was telling you about, right? So once a deal closes, then I would be happy to get back on here and share with you what all the, more specifics were related to it. Right now, these are all hopes and prayers. So
Yeah.
if that happens, then it will absolutely be life-changing. My first deal will solidify my exit strategy from my, full-time position.
Yeah. Man, amen. That's so good. And they're not hopes and prayers. I mean, yes, they're hopes and prayers, but you're following the process, you're following the path, and it's all falling into place. You have your seller contract, you have your buyer contract, you have jurisdictional support on these projects. You know what the jurisdiction wants. Like, as far as you can see, and as far as what we've taught you in the path and the process, your life should change here very, very soon. If I'm not mistaken, you got your life should change here in first quarter of 2022.
Yeah.
So in the next 3 to 4 months.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
That's right.
So, and I'm going to hold you too when that happens. We're going to get you back on here. We're going to talk about it.
Let's do it.
But man, I just, with that said, man, I just want to thank you, right? I want to thank you. I know you have inspired some people today with you being willing to come on here and share your story. And, before I cut out, there's two things. One is I want to share with everybody, we're just releasing a new course where you can go and tee the deals up, right? Get the property owner to the table, and then we will come in and we will be your buyer, right? Or not your buyer, we'll be your partner. We'll capitalize the whole deal. We will run the whole deal, and you can just continue to go and tee deals up. And so, because we've had so many people more and more that say, Cody, I don't want to go do all the stuff that Blake's doing. Well, actually your buyers are doing it, quite frankly. Right. And so Blake's kind of doing the LPU model, Land Prospecting Unleashed. But he's doing it with his buyers, right? His buyers are running the approvals. They're capitalizing the approvals. But, go check out vestright.com/LPU. And here again, LPU stands for Land Prospecting Unleashed. And it's a way for you just to tee up deals, put them together. We'll come in, we'll capitalize them. We'll run the whole deal. And then we call you kind of our development partner. We're going to cut you in on the profits of the deal when we exit. So, and it's very similar to what Blake is doing. But he's doing it with his buyers, which, man, I applaud you on that. That's the most legit ninja strategy we share. And there's nothing better. Sometimes it's easier said than done. And so I just applaud you in being able to pull that off, man. That is very awesome. And before we run though, man, is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah. So the one thing that I do want to say is I just mentioned that I'm kind of sitting there pinching myself. Part of the reason for this is because the process, once you learn it, it's like, I can do this, but it also kind of feels a little too easy. Like, I mean, that's what I keep saying to my wife is like, look, I know that I did all this work, but historically, in order for me to make $1 million, there's way more work involved than what just happened here. So I'm still like kind of optimistically skeptical, right? Of like, is this real? Like, can this really happen? I have every reason to believe that it will happen. And contractually, I'm at the table. So it'll be interesting, but man, it is absolutely something to go after if you're interested in it. I'm really interested in getting through the entitlements, working on, the actual development side of things. I like I said, I love these puzzles. So for me, that's going to be fun to figure out and to work with. Yeah. But I can get it. If you don't like those aspects, totally makes sense to, you're great at sourcing land, bring land to the table and let other people do their magic that they love doing. Yeah.
Awesome, Blake. And it is real. It's okay you're pinching yourself, but it is real. And it's why I say what we do and what we teach creates time freedom, right? Because we can go make all the money in the world, but if our spiritual life isn't in check, our family life's not in check, if, blah, 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 our health, all these different things, right? There's all these pillars of life. And I think it's hard to be successful in all areas of life unless you have time freedom. And with this business model, it does allow that time freedom. I mean, I don't want to sell that it's simple, because you do have to be resourceful and creative, and you do have curveballs thrown your way, but it's not a thing where you're paid by the hour, right? Because if you look at your amount of hours you'll have into a deal versus your payday, it's off the charts. But that's what allows the time freedom. And so I appreciate you sharing that, because that's a big part of, what's important to me is that people aren't chained to a desk, and that they have the time available to be successful in all areas of their life. So Blake, with that said, I got to run, man. I appreciate you joining us, and we're going to get you back on here after that first payday comes in.
Sounds great. Thanks, Cody.
All right, buddy. Take care.